On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Flip and Steele, we're doing a little Monday special with our waiver wire targets and, of course, diving into Monday's mini 3-game betting and DFS board.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back from the weekend. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Flip and Steele. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. You know we are part of the Locked On Network. Thank you so much for all the support. We say it every single day because we mean it every single day. We appreciate all the love. You know where to find us: Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Check us out everywhere you find your favorite content. And make sure you show us some love out there. Smash that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you're following along and do not miss out on a single episode. Speaking of which, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Guys, thank you for being here on Monday's episode. Today, we are going to dive into tonight's mini 3-game DFS and betting board with my main man, Steele. You know he's got your back on the DFS front. We are kicking off the episode, however, by taking a look. It's Monday. You know you're going to be diving into the waiver wire bin. We're taking a look at some bargain guys, Steele. A couple of guys Steele and I have our eye on that we think could make, maybe a little bolstering of your fantasy lineup heading into the week. It's a big key stretch of the season coming up right here, guys. I've said it before. Steele, who are we looking at, brother? Guys, 50% or under or less owned in leagues. We're taking a look at, I've got a few options at a couple of different positions. Thank you for being here, brother. I'm going to stop talking now. What do you got for our Monday waiver wire targets?
Always happy to be here, Flip, of course, with you. So, look, I'm excited. New week, Monday to start off. And look, a mini schedule here, but for the first guy I've got for the waiver targets, it's Tim Stutzla of the Ottawa Senators. You and I, especially you, have, talked up the Ottawa Senators young guys, Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, Brady Tkachuk. So a guy like Tim Stutzla is very, very important for the Ottawa Senators right now, of course, with Norris and Batherson out to injury. So again, Stutzla, 354 fantasy points on the season. He's only owned at 34% on Yahoo Fantasy Leagues, 48 on ESPN. So not a little concerning there, but again, I think his stock value is going to go up a little bit. He's got 12 goals, 27 points on the season so far. Look, he's a third overall pick in the 2020 draft. We've seen it over the last couple of years with the first two overall picks, Alexis Lafreniere and Quinton Byfield. They're still trying to find their game in the NHL right now. There's no question about that. But look, he's got 3 goals in his last 4 games, 106 shots, 79 hits, which for me is a little bit surprising. So he is throwing his weight around out there. He's got 29 blocks, and he centers that top line for the Ottawa Senators, playing with Brady Tkachuk as well. So for me, I've really liked his game in the last 5 games. He's still, like I said, he's still trying to find his footing in the NHL right now. He's going to get there eventually, along with Quinton Byfield and Alexis Lafreniere. But he's got the Ottawa Senators have 4 games this upcoming week. It is a tough little schedule. They play the Lightning, the Panthers, the Coyotes, and the Golden Knights all on the road. So they do have a 5-game road trip right now. It's not going to be easy, but we've seen from the Ottawa Senators that they can win those games and they can play a very dominant game as well. But again, they're without Drake Batherson and Josh Norris. So a guy like Tim Stutz is very important for this Ottawa Senators group. And like I mentioned, I've really liked his game over the last 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, you've heard me talk a lot about what I think about the forward group in Ottawa. I really think that team's starting to go in the right direction. I've talked about them a lot. I've talked about the guys around Stutzla, the Formentons, the Connor Browns. They've really stepped it up. But we've talked all about that. And I think those numbers around a guy, I talk a lot about caliber. I talk a lot about first-round picks. when guys come out of the first round, Steele, there's something there that hey, sue me. I like it. It's a trust thing. Maybe they might not be performing, but these guys who draft them know a lot more than us. They draft them in the first round for a reason, usually a good one. So guy like Stutzla, those numbers for his own percentage are kind of shocking, but I was saying to you off air, maybe it's because we look too closely at this sometimes, and it's every percentage we think these guys should be owned higher. So I really like it. I'm looking at another forward, Steele, and we mentioned it again off air, who surprising that he's owned at only 5% in ESPN leagues, a little higher in Yahoo. Maybe it's because he was just recently coming off injury, but a guy like Sonny Milano, who offers you a lot of versatility up front, as well as a dual eligibility playing left and right wing if your league is organized by position. He has that. He's on pace for a career high in both goals and assists. He has 11 goals and 18 assists in 41 games. He's third on the Ducks in scoring. And, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins just went down with what seemed to be a separated shoulder on Saturday against the Florida Panthers. You might be in need of a guy who can chip in with those kinds of numbers, 40, 50 points a year. Milano's your guy. And him getting time on that top power play unit with your boy Trevor Ziegler, also playing on arguably their top line with Ryan Getzlaf and Troy Terry. This guy has a lot of value, guys. Have a look at this player, Sonny Milano, my top waiver wire target of the week, and only owned at 5% in ESPN leagues. He's probably going to be out there for you. And he's been solid since returning from his injury. So, Steele, I'm just loving this angle. I think you like Sonny Milano. I love this kid a lot. Former first rounder. I'm talking about pedigree. There you go. He's, I think, a 15 or a 16 overall pick by the Blue Jackets. He's only 25 years old. A lot to like about this kid.
Those are two kids that the Anaheim Ducks are going to hold on to a very long time. Trevor Ziegler, Sonny Milano. I really like his game. I do get that he is only owned at 5% on ESPN. You mentioned it. He's coming back from injury. So I understand it from that perspective. But again, before his injury, he was very dominant on that top line with Trevor Ziegler. So I would expect his value to go up as well in the next coming of days. If you need, like you mentioned, one of those guys to fill in for a Ryan Nugent-Hopkins type of player. For my second guy, this is another team that you and I have talked about a lot over the last 2 weeks. And he comes from the New Jersey Devils, Damon Severson on the blue line, 357 fantasy points on the season, only owned at 27% on Yahoo, 21% on ESPN. And I've really liked his game so far this year. If you're looking at his plus minus, he's not going to be your guy, but when does plus minus ever come into fantasy hockey? Rarely ever.
Good point.
So again, he filled in very, very nicely for Dougie Hamilton while he was out with injury. So with Hamilton back in the lineup, it might, bring his minutes down just a little bit. But again, he's got 7 goals, 30 points on the season so far in 51 games, 11 power play points. He's on that first power play unit. He's on the first penalty kill unit as well. He's actually got one shorthanded assist. So maybe that's something to look forward to as well. 105 shots, 53 hits, 61 blocks. He puts up great stats in all of those categories. He's got 9 points in his last 7 games. Absolutely dominant when Dougie Hamilton was out of the lineup. With Hamilton back in, he's still on the first power play unit. Hamilton has dropped down to the second, so he's going to get a lot more power play time as well. And you and I have talked about Jack Hughes the last week. I might have to shuffle my top 5 around after watching Jack Hughes a little bit more closely.
Thank you.
But again, Damon Severson, 30 points on the season. The Devils also have 4 games this upcoming week as well. I didn't know this, but Damon Severson's only 27 years old. I thought he was a little bit older.
Wow,
so
again,
it is a little bit surprising. I thought he was like 30, but he's only 27.
Feels like one of those guys that's just been around for a while.
He does feel like one of those guys.
Yeah.
But, obviously, like you mentioned before, the New Jersey Devils have gotten a lot of guys back from injury right now. It's going to help their game a lot. And Damon Severson has been a big part of why, they've been, a little better recently with all those guys out from injury. So if you need someone to fill on the blue line, I really, really, I would push you to go for a guy like Damon Severson. He's been absolutely fantastic.
You and I tend to agree a lot, Steele, but I actually really, really like this selection from you because, well, number one, like you mentioned, some of his underlying stats might not be so great. And when you watch him play defensively, he leaves a lot to be desired. But that doesn't really
Yeah.
matter when it comes to fantasy, does it? And what matters is he's had a sensational offensive season. I have him in a couple of different formats. So this is why I'm actually loving it even more that you're highlighting it. What I'd like to highlight quickly before we come back from the break, and I'll talk about a goaltending target that I have for my last waiver ad. What I would like to mention quickly here is my love for Built Bars, and that they are covered in 100% real chocolate Steele. I say it a lot. I'm going to keep saying it because I truly do love these tasty little treats. They are low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar will run you anywhere between 200 and 300 calories. It's 2022. It's time to get healthy. Beach season is around the corner. Let's get it. Go to built.com, scroll down the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low cal, high fiber, low carb. You've heard it all before. Most Built Bars contain only 130 calories. Compare that to the doo-doo candy bars, 240 calories. Get that garbage out of here. Mint brownie, coconut almond. You know the flavors are straight fire. Steele's favorite, new this month, new last month. It's a top choice. White chocolate cookies and cream. They are all delicious. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first and figure out how to make it healthy next. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off.
Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. For your next listen, check out Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available on all podcast platforms, just like this podcast. So please make sure you go subscribe, go follow us. Like Flip said at the beginning, we appreciate all the support from you guys. It means the world to us. So thank you so much for that. Flip, before we get into the DFS segment, you did mention that you wanted to talk about one more guy for waiver targets.
Just one more guy, Steele, and I appreciate that. Before we get to, the meat and potatoes of the show, why you guys probably tune in, and we appreciate that, like Steele said. But we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Steele, after Tuukka Rask retired, how there was an opportunity in the Boston crease. And we were kind of liking, myself anyway at the time, Linus Omar to really take that away. His numbers were a little bit better than Jeremy Swayman's. But Swayman needs some love right now, and he needs a look, especially if you're looking to fill a hole in your blue paint roster, because this kid has been playing great. 4-0-1 over his last 5 with a 0.98 goals against and 964 save percentage. So Tuukka who on that front, who this kid has clearly starting to win the crease away from Linus Omar. At the very worst, it's still a 50-50 split. But if he continues to play this way, and I've said it before, the Bruins smell the blood in the water with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I know the Leafs snuck one out in a wild one, 10-7 on Saturday. But if I'm the Leafs, I would be very concerned about the situation they currently find themselves in. The Bruins are 6 points back in closing. And this is a good spot for a fantasy guy, for a goaltender on the Bruins, who are starting to play really well. We'll talk about them in a few minutes. Jeremy Swayman, 32% owned in ESPN League Steele. I would keep an eye on him, definitely as a good waiver ad to kind of bolster your goaltending situation.
I actually have Linus Omar and Jeremy Swayman on one of my fantasy teams, and they've been actually really dominant for me. There isn't one guy I can put heavily above the other. It's probably a 1A, 1B type of situation from me. But again, I think the 1A goalie would be Jeremy Swayman. He has been playing absolutely out of his mind recently, like you mentioned from those stats. And, the Boston Bruins do play Monday night, so that is something to look forward to for DFS as well as betting for big-time bets. My first DFS selection, it's going to come from the first game of the night, the New Jersey Devils versus the Vancouver Canucks. We talked about the Devils a lot over the last week and a half. And rightfully so. You mentioned it so much that when this team is healthy, they're a way better team than we see on paper. The Devils, they have 30 goals in their last 6 games. They're 3-3 in that span. They've been absolutely fantastic. They've been able to get a lot of goals. The Vancouver Canucks, 21 goals in their last 4 games. But I am going to go with the New Jersey Devils for my DFS selections. Jack Hughes, Igor Sharangovich, and Damon Severson. 9 points for Sharon Govich in his last 6 games, 9 points for Hughes in his last 4 games. I already talked about Severson, 9 points in his last 7 games for him. Jack Hughes, he's obviously going to be the most expensive on this list. He's probably going to be upwards, probably around $6,000. Sharon Govich and Severson are going to be a lot less expensive. They're probably going to be around $4,000. You'll be able to save money with these type of players for, if you want to go with guys from the Boston Bruins matchup, the Toronto Maple Leafs versus Washington Capitals. So I'm going with those 3 guys for my first DFS selections.
I like it, Steele. I usually like what you're doing DFS-wise. I like taking your lead. Obviously, with only 3 games on the slate for tonight, you're going to have to slim pickings. But I always start with where I see the most goals. That's where I try to, take my first couple of picks at least. And this game I could see being, something crooked. I talk about them a lot.
Yeah.
I like betting overs. I really like this spot for an over. I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. But you just mentioned it. Both of these teams, and Vancouver for that matter, also scoring a ton of goals right now. So I could see some value on that lineup as well. Also a guy like Jesper Brat. I know you talked about, probably filling out your budget with a guy like Hughes, and for good reason. He's been red hot. But Jesper Brat, you're probably going to get him a little bit cheaper. Still a premium price because he's been so hot. But, that's another good option there, Steele. But I would look to that entire game, both top 6 forward groups from a DFS perspective Monday, both Vancouver and New Jersey.
I like this game a lot. I don't think the New Jersey Devils will win this game. I just, like you said, it's going to be a high scoring game. I'm probably going to bet the over on this one as well because they have been red hot for goals for both of these teams. For the second matchup for DFS selections, like you said, there's only 3 games on the schedule. Not a lot of pickings here, but again, the Toronto Maple Leafs are back in action against the Washington Capitals. Yep. We just saw that absolute mayhem of a game Saturday night, 10-7 win over the Detroit Red Wings. And I'm not going to get
That's a baseball score.
Yeah. Man, dude, that's a football game right there.
Yeah, that's a low-scoring football game. That's crazy.
Absolutely insane to watch. I was, up and down out of my seat the entire time. I'll keep this one relatively short. There's not much really to dive into because it kind of speaks for itself. Yep. I'm going with Bunting, Matthews, and Marner. If I have enough money, I'm going to go all 3 of them. 15 points combined on Saturday night, 6 points for Marner, 4 points for Matthews, 5 points for Bunting. I did mention that Moritz Seider probably has this Calder Trophy in the bag. That's not the case anymore. Lucas Raymond and Michael Bunting both on his tail, as well as with Trevor Ziegler. Matthews, he's top 5 in scoring now. He leads the NHL in goals. Washington's lost their last 2 games, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, leave it at that, and let's leave it real short and sweet because I want to talk about this on from a betting side of things in a couple of seconds here. But you can't deny the chemistry that top line is flaunting right now. Sure, that was the Detroit Red Wings. They literally had to go back and forth between goalies. You've talked about their inconsistencies, Steele. You've talked about Nedeljkovic being an inconsistent goalie this year. So let's maybe take it at face value. But lastly, quickly from a DFS angle, I would also take a look at the Boston Bruins. They're clicking right now. They have all their guys back up top. And Bergeron and Marchand, it's almost like the couple of weeks there of rest has almost really helped a couple of guys who are, getting up there in age and have played a lot of hockey over the last decade. So whether it's Team Canada, long playoff runs. So those couple of weeks there that they got to kind of recover and maybe just work out and skate is now looking like it's really going to pay off huge for the Boston Bruins. So also, if you're not filling out your lineup with guys on the Canucks, Devils, or the Leafs top 6, maybe look to the Bruins as well.
I like that too. I'm going to dive into the Bruins for one of my picks as well. Where you should make your bets is betonline.net. Football might be over this season, but basketball and hockey are in full steam for both pro and college hoops and puck. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all podcast platforms, which also includes YouTube. So like we say all the time, please make sure you subscribe and follow us. to get the latest episodes every single time we release them Monday to Friday. We appreciate all the support. Thank you so much for all of the love out there. And again, with that being said, it's now time for big time bets. Only 3 games on the schedule, but there is still money to be made for Monday night's games. I'm going to throw it over to you because I'm very interested to see what you lead with. I have a bet from every single game on Monday night, so I'm excited to see what you have to say.
Me too, brother. And I appreciate that you're always interested. Guys, thanks for riding with us. I'm going to keep saying it because that's who we are. We appreciate all the love. Hit us up in the DMs. Steele's the guy on the Twitter account. He's giving you the advice. I'm supporting where I can, so thanks for that. Mini 3-game board, Steele, like you said, it's slim pickings, but I swear I would bet on one game and find a way to get it done for you guys. So I have a pick from each game as well. I'll talk about the first one that I already hinted at. Vancouver Canucks at New Jersey Devils. The number is at 6.5. These two teams, if you just look at it from an overall total goal perspective, the last 4 games each, it's just crazy. Like 35 goals total for the Devils over the last 4. That's crazy. I'm just like, right away, I'm confused with how many goals have been scored in these two teams' last 4 games. 7 for the Canucks, then 13 in the other night for, 8 and 5 for the Devils and the Blackhawks. So I'm not going to overcomplicate this one at all. Both teams score goals and allow in bunches. Both teams seem to be clicking offensively, Steele. You mentioned that. So hammer this over and hammer the DFS players on this team, on both these teams, and maybe you have a nice little combo payoff for yourselves. My first pick, over 6.5 in the Devils Canucks game. I could see this one going over the number in a hurry.
Yeah, I'm also going to bet on the over in this game. Like you mentioned, they've been scoring goals at will, both of these teams. I like the over. I was thinking about the money line for the New Jersey Devils, but like I mentioned before, I'm not sure if they're going to win this game against the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah. So my bet for this game is actually going to be Jack Hughes anytime assist. Nice. Mention it. He came back from it. He's come back from injury. He's been red hot in his last 4 games. That entire top line has looked very dominant every single time they step on the ice. That will be my first time bet along with the over in this game. My second one is going to be another player prop. I'll get to that after, but my actual second one is going to be the Toronto Maple Leafs money line against the Washington Capitals on the road. Look, it's very, very complicated with what they have on the blue line and in the crease for Toronto. Yeah. Jack Campbell has not looked good in his last, I want to say 6 out of his 7 last starts, besides that Pittsburgh Penguins game where they won 4-1. Mm-hmm. He hasn't looked good in the crease for me.
No, he hasn't. The Leafs, and this isn't a Leaf show, and I know a lot of people listening like that we don't go too hard on the Leafs, but realistically, 10-7 is not a good thing. No. I literally turned that game off at 7-2 so we could watch Love is Blind or whatever the hell we're watching downstairs with my fiance. But man, 10-7 finish, should be some red flags going up in Toronto right now, and you already mentioned it, one of them being Jack Campbell.
Yeah, it's been scary to watch, obviously getting closer to the postseason. He needs to find his game. I'm not sure if they're going to go with Mrazek or Campbell for this Washington game. I hope they actually go with Mrazek, give Campbell a little bit of rest, maybe some time to get his head in the game. But I am going to take the Maple Leafs on the money line. I already mentioned it for DFS selections. Washington's lost their last 2. Toronto's top line has been absolutely insane up front offensively. So I will go with the Maple Leafs on the money line. But it does scare me with the goalies they have in the crease.
Yeah, and we won't go down that path anymore. But yeah, there should be, Leafs fans should be a little bit concerned about this time of the season and, almost blowing a 5-goal lead to the Detroit Red Wings. Yes. Anyway, we're not hitting panic buttons. This isn't, tune into the Leafs Locked On for that stuff. But anyway, talked about the Bruins a lot lately, and for good reason, from the retirement, suspensions, injuries, now a 4-game win streak at very opportune time. I mentioned the red-hot Swayman. I mentioned the return of key pieces in Marchand and Bergeron. The Bruins are continuing their West Coast road trip, so I will point that out. This is the tail end of a 5-game trip out west, I believe, maybe 4 games. But they are a great road team. 15-7-3, playing really well on the road right now. I mentioned the 4 wins in a row. 5-2 in their last 7 against the Kings, Steele, and I do want to throw the Kings some love for being a very underrated and good team, very much alive in the Pacific Division standings. I like this spot for the Bruins to continue to close the gap on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like I said, this team is just one of those teams that doesn't go away. Well coached, couple of solid veteran pieces, and now that they're getting the goaltending, as a Leafs fan, I'm nervous. I'm nervous because they're coming, and they're coming in a big way. Anyway, Bruins money line -125 at the time of recording. I'm liking the Bruins to continue to roll. I've been taking the Bruins a lot lately, and they've been paying off for me. I like them to continue to roll on this road trip against LA. Let's get it.
Look, either way, the Maple Leafs are not playing the Boston Bruins in the first round. They're either going, they're either playing the Florida Panthers or the Tampa Bay Lightning, no matter what. And I'd rather play those two teams, even though they have been the two of the top 5 teams in the NHL this year. My last pick is going to be Brad Marchand, anytime assist, a second player prop for me. Nice. Brad Marchand came back from that 6-game suspension. The Boston Bruins won 3-1 against the San Jose Sharks on Saturday. Brad Marchand had 2 goals and 1 assist in that game. He's been absolutely feeding David Pastrnak and Patrice Bergeron for their goals. So he's got a ton of apples on the season. Like you said, he looks really rejuvenated since having that week and a half off. I like this going into the LA Kings matchup. Anytime assist for Brad Marchand.
I'm actually going to a player prop as well, sir, for my lock of the night. They've been hitting. I had Elias Lindholm on my Saturday column. Anytime assist, he banged. I'm liking the anytime assist. Some of these guys, Lindholm was at -110. I'm going to the Toronto Maple Leafs Washington Capitals game. I don't really know about the outcome overall, Steele. I like that you're going with the Leafs. This is a coin flip game for me.
Yeah.
One thing that I do know is Austin Matthews elevates his game when he plays against the league's elite. He steps it up against McDavid, he steps it up against Sid, and he steps it up against Ovi. In 10 regular season games against the Caps, he has 11 points, 7 assists. Matthews, anytime assists. I like what he's doing in his two-way, more complete game. He's facilitating. He's creating plays.
Yes.
He's stripping the puck away from guys. I talked about his defensive game really rounding into form, and I think that's translating into more confidence, and you're seeing that. 3 assists Saturday night. He has 5 assists over his last 3 games, and the chemistry on that top line right now, Steele, they could find each other in the dark in the parking lot right now. That top line is clicking like that. So Matthews anytime assist. I don't know if it's going to be a high-scoring game. I could almost see more of a low-scoring game on a Monday nighter. But Matthews anytime assist, my lock of the night. Lock that one in. I'm really feeling it.
I like that. And I also like the game he's played this entire season. If he doesn't win the Selke Trophy this year, I know there's a couple of guys that are up there, nominated for the Selke or in the race for Selke. If he doesn't win this year, I'd be very, very surprised with how his game has developed over the last couple of seasons.
100%. And if he keeps playing like this, Steele, and playing a two-way game and being this valuable, he is definitely going to be right back in that conversation for the Hart Trophy, as he should be. Because without Matthews this year, I know Marner's come on. Realistically, where are the Leafs? They're not in the postseason picture, and maybe they're struggling to get in it. But without Matthews this year, anyway, that's another show. Please wrap it up for us, brother.
Beauty. Okay, so flip anytime assist from Austin Matthews. My lock of the night is going to be anytime assist from Brad Marchand. 2 player props for the lock of the night. Pencil it in, lock it in, make your money Monday night. Not a lot of games, but money to be made, Flip. I'm definitely going to be betting on everything we just mentioned for big time bets. Thank you so much for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice, make your second listen Locked On Bets. Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. It's hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all podcast platforms, just like this podcast right here. So make sure you go subscribe and follow us. Follow us on Twitter as well. Message us, like Flip said, comment on our videos. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. And once you subscribe and follow, you'll get the latest episodes of Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast as soon as they're available every day, which is 7 o'clock in the morning, Monday to Friday. So please make sure you subscribe and follow. We appreciate all the support. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's podcast with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets tonight, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.